hopefully everyone can see my screen. Welcome to Negotiate Offers. How is everyone doing today? At least got a thumbs up. Yeah, all right.
Doing good.
Cool. And Sarah, you must have gotten out of your training early. Oh. All right. So while we give people a little bit of time to hop in, let's do what we always do and let's check.
Yeah,
what
sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. So I didn't realize that I already took the ethics part because I got an email saying you have to take this ethics thing before so many whatever. And so I signed up for it and took the class. So when I went in this morning, they're like, oh, you already took this. You only have to be here for the first half.
Oh, well, that's cool.
So I was like, okay.
Makes it much nicer.
Oh, I'm blacked out. See, I'm
Yes,
using
you
a
are.
new office. So there we go. Now I'm up and running.
All right. So everyone, let's do a quick check-in. How are things going in your businesses? How is lead gen going on? Or going, not going on. So what's going on in your business and how is lead gen going? Let's see if I can talk today. So, yeah, talk to me. How are things going? What are we doing to find clients right now?
For me, nothing's really changed. I'm still like working my sphere. I kind of started farming, so I sent out my first little postcard to people in my neighborhood. Um, and then I met with that for sale by owner today, and she was like really nice. And the real estate agent she knows is like her son's wrestling coach, and he hasn't been very helpful for them. So I was like, oh, well, here's my card, and just reach out if you need anything.
Good job.
So yeah, so that went well, but that's pretty much it.
Good job. And there's nothing wrong with being number two, especially when it sounds like number one probably isn't going to happen. So how about the rest of you? How's lead gen going? We can make this easy, guys, or we can make it long and painful.
So I send out my postcards and now I'm trying to do follow-ups with them. And I've sent out a 4th of July email, just happy 4th of July, remember me and remember, I do referrals kind of thing. And I've done re-catch-ups with the people that I'm hoping to get contracts with soon. So I haven't done door knocking yet. That's my next thing. Because I sent out the postcards to the area. So now I want to go door knock the area. But honestly, I've been in so many meetings for the next couple of days that I'm going to try this weekend.
Well, you guys are in the home stretch for your classes. So you're going to get a big chunk of your life back on a daily basis very soon here. Let's see, we got to let 2 other people in. There we go. All right. And let's see. Who else? Carrie, Isha, April.
Going good. I mostly been getting caught up on like past classes that I had missed. So that was really helpful. I think I emailed you earlier that I did the pricing to sell. Couldn't figure out where the CMA thing was and how I missed it. And then I've really read deeply. I was like, oh, pricing to sell, that's probably it. So I found and I have questions around that I'll ask later. But other than that, I went and previewed some homes in the area, just trying to figure out the market out here. It sounds so different than where you guys are that I feel kind of isolated and like I don't know. But anyway, that's
yeah, you probably of the people in our program, the person you probably have the most in common with is going to be Alan because he's out of the coast, so he's not right in the heart of the city. Haley a little bit because she's a little further out too, but she's not as far out as you are. But I mean, it's a different market. It just
Okay.
is. Yeah, you're right
Yep.
in that.
I've been working on the social media stuff too, so
Great. All right.
really.
All right, Haley, Bo, April, we're just kind of checking in on how lead gen is going right now and what we're doing to find business.
I've started partnering with local businesses. Don't mind my printer. Here in my little town, just to kind of get the word out. I met with a videographer and photographer today. Made a good connection there, and he has a lot of people that are getting ready to start buying and selling. So made that good connection. Still getting caught up on all the classes that I missed the last couple of weeks. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You're on it, and I am trying to find you an open house, Shadow.
No worries.
I have not had luck yet, but I am working on it.
If it's not in Salem area, not the end of the world, I can go up to Portland. Just Salem is 20
Would be
minutes.
nice. Yes.
So
I have another person. I did have them respond. They just didn't have anything. So I'm going to see. I've got one other person I'm going to check and see. Although I talked to her today, she doesn't have any listed. So I don't know if she's doing open houses or not, but I will
Okay.
check. So, all right, Bo, April, how are we doing?
I'll go next just because I'm at work. So I have an open house a little bit past Eugene on Saturday that I'm shadowing for Linda. So I'm excited about that. And I just announced to like my friends and family yesterday about this like new journey. So I'm gonna start reaching out to them hopefully this weekend and just start sharing the word, I guess. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
All right. Bo, Isha, anything you want to jump in with?
No, just same. I just got back from the PMA event. Just met up with Sarah and Santosh. I think he's driving back home, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I learned some fun things today. A lot of opinions, but yeah.
I bet. How about you, Isha?
Yeah, so I'm back from my trip. Gave the offer during when I was traveling, and then it got rejected. Yes, the seller sent the counter offer, and my buyer didn't accept that, so it got rejected.
Okay.
But she's a uh, she's a good client. She is looking for other house, so
Okay. Okay.
just trying to understand her requirements, why she's like,
I was pretty surprised they countered you. Just a little feedback. They countered pretty strong. I mean, they basically countered back at their list price, which I was surprised. So
yeah,
I mean, yeah, it is what it is. So she'll find something. But I was surprised. I thought you would get that one. So onward, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully you're coming back relaxed and ready to go.
yes, I am.
All right.
Thank you.
And Ryan, I don't know if you're somewhere where you can talk or not. We're just kind of doing a check-in before we jump into the class.
I can talk.
All right. We're saying, what are you doing for lead gen? Where's your business coming from?
I am about to ask one of the other agents around here. They have a house that's listed a couple blocks from me. I'm gonna see if they're doing if they'll let me do an open house for them.
Oh, that'd be
And-
great.
Yeah, that's pretty much the main thing right now.
Yeah, right in your neck of woods is always wonderful. That's one to door knock around too, if you can hold it open.
Heck yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's jump into today's class. All right. So today is all things negotiations. First of all, I want to make sure everyone can see my screen. And does everyone have their packet for this class? Sweet. All right, then we're gonna roll. Okay. So a couple things here. Look how far you've come. We've got 3 Ignite classes left. So you've gone through becoming, a real estate expert, learning, the basics of becoming a real estate expert. You've gone through lead gen, you've gone through all the lead follow-up, and now you're really focused in the transaction part. So kind of pat yourself on the back because you've come a long way. and you're in the home stretch. So today we are gonna, like I said, focus on the negotiating offers class, and the class. My screen is not working, so hang on here. My computer is frozen. There we go. Wow. That was the slowest change I've ever seen. All right. So we're going to talk about what is negotiation. We're going to talk about using the 3 Ps approach to negotiation. We're going to talk about negotiation, tips and tricks. And then obviously we'll, do a quick recap and any ahas. I don't know. Sorry, guys, my computer is acting really weird. It shut down right when I was getting on, and now it's being a little wonky. So, all right, negotiating is not something to be avoided or feared. It's an everyday part of life. Agree or disagree?
I would assume it's kind of scary as we're first doing it, but once you've done it a few times, you get to feel more comfortable.
Yes. I would argue, first of all, any of you have children, you negotiate on a regular basis. And guess what? They oftentimes out negotiate you. However, so we do negotiate a lot. So, in terms of on a daily basis, we just don't think about it. So the reason that's even coming up is because the question is, what limiting beliefs do you have around it? I agree with Sarah. A lot of us feel like, oh, that's scary. The unknown is scary.
Yeah, the scary part is like if we negotiate, we come to know what is the mindset of the other party. Is that party is very adamant about their own pricing. They don't want to consider others' condition or want to help in that closing or in that deal. So that's the same thing I faced in my last deal. The seller was not ready to negotiate even for $1,000. He just wanted to make a turn and then put everything on the buyer. So negotiating is sometimes very hard.
It is. I think you brought up an interesting thing there is when you're negotiating, it does help if you're looking at kind of both sides. You will be a better negotiator if you're able to go, okay, I'm going to step out of like who I am and I'm going to put myself in their shoes and see what would I do if I was on their side, because then you get more of that well-rounded negotiation versus this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. It's like, okay, is there a way that could maybe you can get what you want and the other person can get what they want? That's always what we're hoping for. So here's one, because I said kids, and that if you have kids, you negotiate. But how many of you have ever bought a car? All right. Yeah, I've bought many. How many of you just went in and sat down and said, okay, I'll buy it? Most of you went back and forth and did some negotiations. So the reason we're even kind of talking about this is just to remind you, you have more negotiating skills than you probably give yourself credit for. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head. All right. What is negotiation? It's what we really get paid for. We get paid for a lot of things. I would argue this is probably one of the biggest things. And I would argue it's when you're negotiating with your client to get under contract with them, whether it's a buyer rep agreement or a listing agreement. Then you're negotiating the sale agreement. And then most of you will find that the hardest part of a real estate transaction is not getting into contract. It usually is the repair addendum. So there's 2 major negotiation parts in the real estate transaction, and there's the major negotiation up front to either get them as a client in the first place. So this is a really important skill to learn and practice. All right, negotiation and the Y4C2Ts. So this is actually one of the sections where the Y4C2Ts really comes into play even more. But when you look at the Y4C2Ts, which one of these would you say comes into play the most for negotiation?
Probably communication.
That's a huge one. Yes. Any other ideas?
I was also going to say integrity.
Yep. Very much so. Any other ones?
Customers.
Win-win.
Yep. So do you see also how our Y4C2Ts play into almost everything? You can't win-win, definitely. Integrity, yes. Customers, that's who you're doing this for. Commitment. Negotiation takes commitment. Communication, definitely. Seek first to understands. Creativity. Negotiation takes creativity. And there goes my, I hate those little bubbles. Teamwork. Teamwork maybe doesn't show up as much, but it's teamwork in anything you're doing there. And then trust starts with honesty. Yeah, it's a lot easier to negotiate with somebody who trusts you. Equity, we're always going to come from a place of equity. And then success, negotiation. Unfortunately, negotiation is kind of a win-lose type thing. They're either successful with it or it doesn't come together. So, but a couple other things when you are thinking about negotiation. Those of you who are in my coaching program have heard this, but keep your emotions under control. Don't get defensive. This is not about you as a person. This is about you and the negotiations. And it's really ultimately about the client and the negotiations. The second you start getting defensive, your ability to negotiate goes way down. The second you get angry or start talking, the biggest place I see it is, clients will be frustrated with, or an agent will be frustrated with the other agent, so they'll talk to their clients about it. Don't do that. Coming back to your client and saying, oh my goodness, the other agent's such a jerk. They didn't take the offer. I can't get them on the phone. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, no, not a good look. All that's doing is stirring the pot for your client, and they're already stressed. Now you've stressed them more. Now they think the other agent's a jerk. So there's that kind of negativity going there. It's a bad thing. If you need to complain about an agent, a client, somebody else, do it to a friend, do it to a spouse, do it to somebody else in your office. Don't do it with your clients. How would you feel if your attorney walked in and started complaining about his interaction with the other? Like, that's not a good look. Professionals keep it between the lines. So just remember that. And then also, and I talked about this a little bit, but put yourself in the other person's shoes. And then also remember, give people grace. We have a tendency to come from a place of almost not an attack, but in negotiations, remembering and assuming the best. That's what I would say. Assume the best of the other person in the negotiation until it's proven differently. And some of that means having some grace. Oh, they made a mistake. People make mistakes. So this is kind of the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated in negotiations. And by the way, if you've got questions or anything, just holler, because this is kind of it's a class. There's some back and forth and dialogue in too. All right. If I can get my computer to move, we'll move on. There we go. All right. So path of a negotiation. Well, option one is really what we want. Offer, accepted, close. If it were only that easy. But so option two tends to be a little bit more where things, the way things tend to play. So we put an offer in, the offer comes back. It's either, in this scenario, it's rejected or countered. Then there's a negotiation period. That's when the buyer and seller may be going back and forth. You know, the seller may have countered and said, you know, we want X, and the buyer's like, great, I'm gonna renegotiate, counter back. You finally get to an accepted position, or you get it rejected. Then the other piece that's after this is once you're accepted out here before the close, you have repair negotiations as well. So there's that second negotiation time frame on your you know, on the transaction. Now remember also that the negotiation isn't this makes it look like, well, it only happens at the time of offer. You are literally negotiating every step of the way with your clients. So I've got a new buyer. I've negotiated and they're now on a buyer representation agreement. Now we're out and we're looking at homes. There's some negotiation you're doing when you say to your client, I understand you want these 15 things. This house has 10 of the 15. Do you think you can make it work? That's a negotiation. So you're always in negotiation and you're always working to build more trust, more, basically more trust with that client. The more trust you have someone, the more you're able to negotiate freely. And there isn't a feeling of this person's negotiating with me and they might be trying to take advantage of me. And that goes with the agents and clients, but definitely with your clients. Any questions on kind of the path of negotiation? Okay. Like I just said. Oh, did you have something, Nisha?
Yeah, in the previous slide, when we say the negotiation, rejection, accepted, and the client says no, rejected, and after some time, she realized we should go back and ask them again. The paperwork should start as a new offer.
Correct.
Or
yes.
A new offer?
Yeah, definitely. Once you've gotten to the point of it being rejected, you want a new offer.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Like I said, who do you negotiate with? Your clients, the agent on the other side of the transaction. You're always negotiating. So I've kind of talked about this, but tell me some of the things that get negotiated in a transaction.
The price.
Price. Sorry,
Yes.
Georgia, go.
You're okay.
Yes.
You both nailed it. Price is definitely the number one. What else?
Repairs.
Yep.
Who pays for the home warranty?
Yep.
Who pays for HOA transfer fees?
Mm-hmm.
Who pays the buyer remaining commission?
That's actually a good one, Isha. That's your entire compensation is
Yes.
now a negotiation. So guess what? You may be worried in the past about whether or not your client was going to get the house and how well you negotiate on that. Now you're not just negotiating for them, you're negotiating for you as well. The other thing to note is more and more listing agents are looking at sellers are looking at buyer's agents and saying, if I'm paying them, besides the buyer, what are they bringing to the table? How professional are they? Are they going to make this a win for everyone, or is it going to be a nightmare every step of the way? Now, they're going to find most of that out either from when you were showing and they might have met you or something, but a lot of that comes from their agent and their agent giving them feedback. So know that how you show up, you're negotiating the second you pick up a phone, send a text, send an email. You maybe don't know it, but you are, because you're laying the foundation of that relationship. You're establishing that communication. So people are already getting to go, oh, this is how this person is up front. That's how they'll be most likely in contract. So yeah, all good stuff. Couple things to remember, not everything is monetary. You're negotiating closing dates, you're negotiating length of contingencies, you're negotiating well, we didn't mention it, but credits, credits for closing costs, all of those things. So there's a lot of mini spots throughout. Like I said, there's the two big ones, but there's a lot of mini spots. Common points of negotiation, usually price, but then the terms, and remembering those are financial and time-based. And then other stuff sometimes, rent backs, appraisals, how much you're putting down as an earnest money deposit, personal property. All of these are things that we negotiate on, and they impact the transaction. Anything that comes up for you guys when you're thinking about price versus terms in your negotiation?
Yeah.
Isha?
So, how does it matter to a seller when we say our client is going to make the down payment of 20%, 30%, or 10%? Ultimately, whole money will go to them either from the loan or from the down payment. But why they are so bothered how much down payment is done? And when we say they are doing 30% down payment, they become very aware of that the client is very well versed financially.
Yes. So what happens there is, the more, okay, a couple things. And these are generalizations because it's not always true. But in general, the more money you have to put down, the more solid you are financially. That also means that that's a time then when you have the ability. People who put 30% down in general are less likely to ask for small repairs. They're less likely, if things go wrong, they've got more financial, they're more stable. I mean, as I'm wobbling to show you guys, but if I'm putting 5% down, that means most likely I don't have additional cash, or I would be putting it down. So if something comes up as a major repair, I don't have the ability to make the repair because I have no money. So a seller taking an offer from me knows that there's more of a likelihood that we might have a little bit of an issue with appraisal. We might have a little bit of more of an issue with repairs versus somebody who's coming in, putting 20% down, their conventional financing. Those people can roll with it a lot better than, the typical person who's putting a small amount down. The other thing to remember on that, for not always, like I'm the exception to the rule on this, but most people who are only putting like 5% down, they tend to be first-time buyers. So they're just more skittish in general. They're more likely to just get cold feet and walk. They're more skittish. So those are some of the reasons. It also usually, if you're putting 30% down, you're conventional. If you're putting 5% down, you might be conventional, but you may also be FHA. So all financing is not created equal. So yes, the more you put down, the more financially stable you are, the more cash you have in. That's why we always say cash is king. Well, cash is king because you can do whatever you want. You don't have to ask anyone's permission, basically. We're not worried about appraisal. We're not worried about anything except for the actual negotiation between the two parties. Nobody else is involved, so it makes it much easier.
Thank you.
So tell me, if you're trying to find out, you're making an offer and you're like, all right, we're going to make an offer. What do you do to find out what should go in that offer?
Would like a pre-approval from a lender be
That's
kind of
good.
what you're asking?
Yeah, I definitely, here's the thing, guys, our contracts allow for no pre-approval letter. I can tell you as a listing agent, if I get an offer without a pre-approval letter, I don't know if you can do what you're doing, say you can do without that pre-approval. So for me, I want that letter with the offer. So definitely. I maybe didn't ask that super clear. Maybe I just need to tell you where I'm coming from. So my recommendation is before you ever write an offer, that you call up the listing agent and you say, what's important to the seller besides price? And then you just zip your lip and let them talk, because they will tell you things that you can build into your offer that have nothing to do with price, but that matter. Sometimes the seller wants a 45-day close. Sometimes if they can do it in 21 and you're able to, great. Now, don't ever say you're going to do a 45 or a 21-day close without checking with a lender first to make sure they're capable of it. But if the lender can do it, great. That's a win for everyone. So that asking, and it doesn't always have to be, it can be an email, it can be a text, it can be a phone call, but checking in, because otherwise you're negotiating blind. How many offers are there? All these kinds of things. So, any questions on that? All right. What did we learn in that section? Give me a few ahas. How are you going to utilize it?
I didn't think about like calling up the seller's agent and asking what else is important other than the money. So that was really helpful.
Right.
I feel like I need a checklist. Make sure I'm getting everything clear.
And here's what's interesting, and you can, so that's really interesting, Sarah. Thank you for sharing that. And here's why I'm saying that. What tends to happen once you've done it a few times is it's just so automatic that you don't really think about it. But initially, yeah, having that checklist and being able to go, boom, boom, do they need a rent back? Is it okay to ask for a credit? Is there anything, is there stuff they want to leave or they want to take? All of these things. And when you're making that call, also check and see, why are they selling? Some people will be very vague, but some will tell you their life story. And guess what? That can be used in negotiation. So that you are already, what we're doing right now, we're already negotiating. When you call up and ask what else is important to the seller, you are already in negotiation mode. Now, that doesn't feel like negotiation. So once again, this is just kind of circling back to remembering it may feel scary. We negotiate all the time. So, any other ahas? All right, so we're going to move on to the 3 P's of negotiation. So what's cool about negotiation is this is something that everyone can learn and everyone can perfect. This is not a, oh my goodness, you either have talent or you don't. This is a learn the skill, practice it, hone it, get excellent at it. So really the 3 P's are prepare, present, and position. So preparing is getting ready so that when you come in to negotiate, you feel solid. It's getting whatever background information, all those things. Present, this is moving into actually presenting your offer. And then position. This is how you continue to kind of navigate to get to that middle ground. Sometimes that happens immediately. Sometimes though, it takes some doing. So we're going to go into each one of these and how it works basically. Prepare. You got to know where you're going. What are you negotiating on? What's the end result you want? And really, guys, this should be with anything you do. I sent an email to somebody yesterday asking them to review it before I sent it off. And they came back, said, this reads great. What were you trying, what are you trying to achieve here? And I was like, that's a perfect question. I was able to boom, boom, and give the exact, this is what I wanted. And they came back and said, you achieved it. So that's what you should be asking. If you're sending an email, sending a text, making a phone call, what's your goal here? Why are you doing it? And then what does that look like? How's that a win for both sides when you're in that negotiation? Know your client. If you don't know your client, you cannot negotiate well on their behalf. You've got to have an idea of this is what's really important. Okay. I just finished negotiations on a repair addendum. Fair amount came up. We asked for a roof replacement and a sewer repair. It's a big repair addendum. It's going to cost the seller probably about $26,000 on a house that's $525,000. So it's a big repair addendum. We had no problems at all because both agents know how to negotiate. We know how to talk through it. One of the things I said to him is, hey, the roof is what's important, because I knew that was what was important to my clients. I said they would be willing to, I'm pretty sure they would be willing to take credit for the sewer if they don't want to do it. Well, they're doing all of it and that's good. which oftentimes they will, because a credit for a sewer line is usually going to end up being more than if the seller just did it. So they're doing it, they're doing the roof, life is good. But I had to know going in. So as we filled it out, I asked my clients, where are you at with this? Also, because we were talking about getting the appraisal ordered. And they were like, even if they don't do any of them, we still want the house. So when you have a client that says that, this is anything you can do for them, they're going to be super excited about, because if they don't get it, they're still okay. So, but knowing where they're at and what points to negotiate hard on and what points if that are okay for you to drop. Because a lot of negotiation is on paper. A lot of it though is verbal, guys. It's back and forth before it gets put on paper. If it wasn't, we'd have 5,000 addendums and counteroffers on every transaction. So there is that, run it by the other party, kind of the general, and see where the sticking points are, because you might be able to address those. Usually you can. Think ahead. So, anticipate what they may want, what may come up, what the other party may come back with. So walking through that way. Sorry guys, my computer is just doing weird stuff. Set clear expectations. First of all, set them for yourself, and then set them for your clients. So because we're leaning more on the buy side right now, because we're talking about offer right, and also because that's more what you guys do, set clear expectations. That means when you sit down in the buyer consultation, that you're telling them, here are things that are reasonable ask for, and here are things that are probably not going to work super well if we ask for them. Now, sometimes you get lucky, but allowing them, letting them know, here's the process, and here's kind of what is reasonable and what's a little cray-cray. So the process, all right, we're going to make an offer. The seller has the right to accept, reject, or counter. If they accept, great, then we move forward and we'll talk about next steps then. If they don't and they reject, then they've given us a pretty hard no, that they didn't like our offer. So we'll have to decide then if we want to submit a new offer with different terms or what we want to do. Or third, if they counter, that means they're open to negotiations. So now we're in the game and we're kind of talking and going back and forth. That's clear expectations. That way the client, the more you're able to tell the client, stay a step ahead of them so they're not feeling that anxiety of, I don't know what's going to happen here, the better off you will be. Be informed. That means understand, know the market, know what makes sense, like be informed. That is part of what we're paid for, is to have the knowledge, be informed. It means making that call to that seller, all those things, or to that listing agent, so that you've got as much information as you can. Obey the laws. Hopefully I don't need to go into detail on that. Please don't break the law. It won't be fun for you, and it won't be fun for the brokerage either. Know the documents inside and out. Again, those of you that I coach have heard this over and over and over again. The person that knows the paperwork the best wins the game. They control things, because they're able to use the nuances of the contract to their advantage. They also, anytime you make an offer, that listing agent gets that offer. Remember, if the seller signs it, your client's in contract. So if you screwed up in that paperwork, your client's in contract. Not necessarily the way you wanted them to be, but they're in contract. Now, if you notice that in that first inspection period time frame, you've got some ways to change that for them or to terminate. But if you don't notice it, guess who's going to be responsible for that at the end? So know your contract, take your time, go through. You should understand the sections well enough to be able to explain them to somebody. If you can't, that's what you need to be working on. Walk through your paperwork and explain it to somebody in layman's terms. If you can't do that, practice it. Any questions on any things for prepare?
So when we start making an offer, we are in a contract, everything got accepted, both the parties are ready. Like the kind of a client I'm dealing with, anytime some immature decision comes. So if she says, no, I don't want to be in this contract anymore, during inspection time, we have 10 days, we can use that time frame to come out of the contract when something comes very fishy over the house.
So during the inspection period, you can terminate during the inspection period. You have to have done inspections. So what a client can't do is get in, be in contract for 5 days. Well, we'll say 6 days because 5 days they still have an out. Been in contract for 6 days, and this is assuming you got the property disclosure, along with the signed agreement. So day one was day one for the property disclosure as well. So your property disclosure contingency is expired. You're in contract. You're in the inspection phase. So in the inspections, you have to at least do one inspection in order to terminate. That being said, it doesn't matter, guys. The house can be perfect. The inspector can find out a single thing and your client still has the right to terminate.
And then we don't have to give a reason to the seller agent that why my client has terminated it.
You're terminating based on inspections and due diligence. You do
And
have
then-
to, on any termination, you have to give your reason. That doesn't mean you say she got cold feet. Please don't ever, let me teach you one thing here, guys. I don't care if that's the truth. I don't care if you know the other agent. I don't care if you think your client is whatever. Never tell somebody the reason somebody got out is cold feet or they decided they liked a different house better. That puts your client in jeopardy. What you say is based on their inspections and their due diligence for, how they want to be using the property. It's not a good fit. So they're terminating.
And then if they ask the inspection report that time and
Send it
they
to
don't
them.
find,
Doesn't matter.
we can.
If they ask for it, you have to.
Yes.
Yeah. If they don't ask for it, you don't ever send it. If they ask for it, you have to. And if they go, well, there's nothing in here, then that's what you say. No, you're correct. It's their own personal stuff that they've found out about the property and they're just not interested in proceeding. Now, if there's something specific in there that's true, there's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, I understand that, but they found out the house has, I don't know.
Mold.
Well, mold would be a repair thing to ask for. So it could be,
The age of the roof.
yes, could be, well, age of the roof, but here's one that's more likely. You know what? They were hoping to be able to replace the carpets with hardwoods because they have allergies and they found out the cost of replacing with the hardwoods and they're not willing to move forward.
So
That's in your inspection contingency period. After that inspection contingency period, the only thing that gets you out of the contract is that you can terminate on and get your earnest money back. You can always terminate on the buy side. On the sell side, if you terminate, you can be sued for specific performance, depending on when you are. And so that you have to be careful with. Yeah, Isha.
So you said after inspection contingency is over, there is one more reason that we can come out of the contract. It
Yeah,
was
you
not
have
clear, please.
appraisal and loan.
But that is all on papers.
That is all
They can
paper. There's nothing that the client can just go, I don't want this anymore. So remember we went back to the set clear expectations? That's part of setting up those clear expectations with your client.
Yes.
When you make an offer on a house, you are committed to the house. Unless something comes up that we don't know about, you have decided that based on the terms that you're agreeing to, you are agreeing to close. To do anything other than that, honestly, is not acting in good faith.
Mhm.
And that's
Jen, can I ask a
good faith. What was that, Sarah?
I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Okay, so with the home inspection, you said, so if I have a buyer and they get a home inspection and the seller requests that inspection, I have to give that to them.
Yes.
Okay, so and then when we were talking about from the seller's perspective, if they get so the buyer gets an inspection, you ask for the report, you look at the report, now they've decided to decline it and not take your house. The next buyer that comes in and says, have you had an inspection done on it? I don't have to give that to them, right?
Yes, you do.
Okay,
Yes,
because
you
I
do.
swear we were in another lesson saying that we didn't have to provide them with someone else's inspection that was
Yes,
done.
you do. I don't know who taught you that. If that was taught, it's incorrect. You
Okay,
have to disclose any information that is known on that property. So to sit with an inspection and not share it,
okay.
yeah. So that's why people don't always ask for it. In fact, in general, you don't. The only time you're going to ask for it is if you get a repair addendum that you're like, this is too much, or this doesn't really make sense. You want to be very
Okay.
careful. And I mean, this is weird for me because I sell in California and it's the opposite. In California, we always get the report. It's in the contract that you're required to share it. But yes, that is that's known information that needs to be shared with the next
Okay,
buyer.
so if I am a seller's agent and I have a buyer get a report done, I don't request that, then I don't have that information and I don't have to pass it on to the next buyer.
That is true.
Okay.
That's why you only ask for that report if you're like, this doesn't make sense or you're concerned. Now, sometimes agents will ask for certain pages out of the report. Like, for instance, on this particular one I was just talking about that I negotiated. So the roof, they actually asked for the, because I told them, I said, we've got some stuff going on here. Here's some of the things. He said, okay, when you get the inspections, just send them to me. So I sent him every inspection because that's what he wanted. But that could have been one where he said, just send me the pages about the roof. You'll hear agents say that. They'll ask for the specific pages that correlate with what you've asked for. So
I have a quick question about that. So
Yeah.
when we, like as a buyer's agent, call the seller's agent before we put in an offer, would that be like an appropriate time to be like, has there been any inspection done on the house that you have paperwork for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any prior inspections? Do you have disclosures yet? All of those things. Yeah. Perfect.
I have a follow-up on this as well. So let's just say that a secondary buyer comes along, they find out that an inspection had been done, they receive the report. Can they terminate using a previous buyer's inspection report without having done their own inspection?
If it's yes, and here that would be under a disclosure contingency, not an inspection contingency. Normally those inspections, guys, you're going to see them before you get under contract. So the buyer is going to sign off on that inspection and decide, are they going to do any of their own? The other piece to that, and it's up to your client because I realize it saves them money. Unless the inspector is someone they know or you know, you might want to have your own independent inspection done. And if somebody did a whole home inspection, but they didn't do radon or sewer, which are the three that, in my opinion, always go together, and then you work from there, then you might, you might use the whole home inspection, but then do a radon test and a sewer scope. Anything else on any of this? All right, we keep cruising. All right, prepare. So, ask purposeful purposeful questions. My goodness, I can't speak today. So we have a tendency as realtors to want to talk. If I talk at you enough, maybe you'll comply. Much better if we ask questions. So we've got to, and this is something, this is where people think it's crazy. We think of questions just being these things that we come up with out of the blue. Oh, I have a question. And that's one form of question. But these are the type of questions that let you get very clear. So these are questions you write out in advance, sort of like Sarah was saying. If I'm going to get on a call with a listing agent, what are some of the things I want to ask them? I want that checklist so I don't miss anything. So by asking questions, You can, by asking questions and then just shutting your mouth, you're going to get a lot more in terms of the points you can negotiate on. You're going to get insight on where you have leverage with your client, where your client has leverage with the seller if it's the buyer. It helps with setting expectations. It allows you to get to know your clients better and understand their goals. All of these things, coming together then for the win-win. But really what you're doing is you're getting more information. I'm sure you have all heard, got one mouth, two ears, use them accordingly. We tend to do the opposite. So asking a question and then sitting back and letting your client think on it. That also sometimes means being okay with silence. Oftentimes, if you ask a really good question, the other person has to kind of stop for a second and go, oh, hadn't thought of that, and kind of think through it. So you have to be okay with not going, oh my goodness, there's silence. I have to jump right back in. No, I'm going to sit here. I've asked the question, let them put together their answer and come back to me. So being able to ask purposeful questions is a really big part of everything we do, because the more you know, the more power you have. Any questions on questions?
I think it's really that sit back and listen part is going to be very difficult for me. And so that's good to keep hearing. Just trying to figure out questions that allow them to tell me information.
And so some of that also is, some of those are going to be standard, and some of those are going to be, okay, here's the little bit of information I do have for this person. What are the things that, based on that information, I know I'm going to want to ask to go deeper? Because that's the other piece. Don't ask surface level, ask deeper questions, or ask surface level and then go deeper from there. And also, I'm sure you've all heard the yes or no. Ask open-ended questions. Open-ended questions make our brains engage and you get the real answer. Yes or no questions, our brains go, I'm asleep, yes or no. Any other questions? Okay. I'm leading myself through this. All right, open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. Open-ended, they have unlimited response options. So you've got some examples up here. What additional information should I know? What is important about closing in 30 days? How do you feel about that? All of those give you really important information that leads towards negotiations. What's important about closing in 3 days? Nothing. I just was told that's how long it is. If we can do it faster, that would be great. If we can do it longer, I'm okay with that too. All right, so my client has just told me they don't really care about the closing date. That's not where I'm gonna, put my stake in the ground and hold the line. But and then I could say, how do you feel about that? That's a question to go deeper. So is what's important about closing in 30 days. Because what you probably said is, okay, when do you want to close? Oh, 30 days. Oh, okay, what's important about closing in 30 days? I don't know. It was just a number. It was an automatic response because that's what I've heard. Great. The sellers said they won't leave the refrigerator. How do you feel about that? Oh, well, do you think they might give us a credit then? Because we don't really have money to buy a new fridge. Okay. Or some people, I don't care. All right. So otherwise I might have been like, oh, well, that's a big deal, or oh, it's not a big deal at all, and be wrong. So that's that open-ended. Then when you look at closed-ended questions, these are all yes or no. Do you have to sell your home by a specific date? Yes or no. Do you have any other offers? Yes or no. What is the bottom line price you would consider? That's not a yes or no, but it's a one-word answer. So somebody take one of those closed-ended and turn it into basically asking the same question, but making it open-ended.
What is your time frame for needing to move?
Yep, that one works.
I would say what appliances are you including? But that should be written in the offer. Right?
Well, it'll be written into the offer. It should be on the MLS, but MLS, not all agents put
Are
everything.
clear.
Yeah. And also just because it's not like, let's say your client wants the washer and dryer, and let's say it has not been included on MLS. You can still ask for it. So, yeah, so any of these, and some of these you can kind of layer on, like, you know, when do you need to move by? Oh, we need to move by, da, 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 da. What's important, you know, what's important about that date? Is there any flexibility in it? See, those things help me know better how to negotiate. And if I have this information up front, because I've kind of had this conversation in getting to know my clients and signing a buyer rep agreement or a listing agreement with them, allows me to, the more, again, I just keep going back to, the more you know about your clients, about the contract, about the property, about the other agent, about the seller, the more you are in the position to negotiate better. Information is power. Did you have something, Nisha?
Yeah, so in my last offer, my client was asking, is the blinds included, lights are included, fans are included? So we should ask the seller agent or not? How
No.
does it?
Somebody tell me what's an attachment and what's personal property. There's an easy phrase to use.
Okay.
Well, I don't know the easy phrase. But if it's attached to the wall or it is intended, it is put on the property with an intention of use for the property, like a plant that's in the ground versus in a pot, then it stays.
Yes. The easy way of thinking about it, if it's screwed or glued, it stays.
Screwed and okay.
Unless it's excluded. If it gets excluded in the contract, then it doesn't stay. But I'll see a lot of times offers from new agents that under the personal property, they're listing ceiling fans and microwaves and dishwashers. Those are not personal property. Those are all attached to the property. So the biggest thing there is know what's personal property and what's attached. And then if there's personal property that they want and it hasn't been addressed in MLS, you can always go back and ask. Personal property, I usually recommend discussing with the agent before you just start writing a bunch of stuff into the offer. You know, the people may or may not want to leave their king size bed because your clients love it. You know, so it just depends. All right, anything else on open-ended or closed? Do you guys see how open-ended is going to probably draw out more information? So the reason we look at it this way also is play with it, because we have a tendency to kind of get lazy in our questions. And then when we're lazy in our questions, we get yes or no answers. If you've kind of gone in advance and sort of thought about, hey, you know, I'm sitting down with these people today, and what additional information would be really helpful if I knew about it, about that for them, that might, you know, be better for negotiations. It might be better for just doing something nice for them as clients. But again, it builds connection and it gives you information. 2 wins. All right, what and why questions. So what would happen if? What's nice about this is it allows you to kind of futurize with them and sort of test out. So what would happen if we got it? What would happen if we didn't? Well, if we get it, we'll be thrilled. You know, going back to my negotiations that I just went through. Okay, what would happen if they won't do it? Yeah, we're still going to move forward. Okay, so that helps me in the negotiation. I knew full well that if the other side started balking, I might not get the full roof, but I would at least try and get them some cash or something. Because I'm never going to lay down if a client's like, well, it doesn't really matter, but we're asking for it. Well, it matters enough to ask for it. So I'm going to do everything I can to get it, especially if it's one repair. Now, when I have a list of 15 repairs that aren't legit and I've told my client it's a bad idea, I am less likely to push as hard because they're not making as reasonable of a request. But if they're making a reasonable request, you know, I will fight for it, negotiate And then why is this important to you? I love that. In general, I will say, because they're saying what and why questions, I like to change my why questions into what questions. And here's why. Why is this important to you? Why has a little bit of a versus, oh, what about that's important to you? So why, if it's said wrong or taken wrong, that's a lot of times, if the other person receives it, why can feel sometimes a little bit like an attack. Why? Why are you doing that? That's, see my tone, like if I say, well, oh, well, that's cool. Why are you doing that? That tone isn't attacking. If I go, well, why are you doing that? That can feel a little more. So why of all of them is a little bit more one of the ones that can get a little bit more like negative. It's not the end of the world, but if you can use what instead of why, there's usually a way to kind of change your speaking or your writing so that what works instead of why. Just a little tip. But yeah, the why is this important to you? Huge question to ask. Huge question to ask. You will open up opportunities that you never imagined because you're making an assumption about why something's important and it has nothing to do with what you thought it was important for. And when you find out what it's important for, then you're able to go, oh, okay, more information. Now I can go out and find a better property, or I can negotiate differently for you. Questions on what and why questions. Anyone want to do a quick role play on how these questions might work?
Sure, I'd love to.
All right. Do you want to be agent or client?
I'll be the agent.
Okay. So what's the scenario? You get to set it up. You're the agent.
Okay, so it is a condo near Lake Oswego that has an HOA of about $400. I don't know if we need to get that specific. 250? No, that's not realistic. $500,000 price for the condo.
Okay.
And I do not know the square footage there, but I'm going to say about 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got the property we're talking about, and I actually said myself as the client, I can be another agent. Who do you want me to be? Who do you want to be asking questions of?
Ooh. How about I'm the buyer's agent and you're the seller's agent?
Okay. So then let's set it up as you're calling me because your client's interested in making an offer on that property.
Okay. Hi, Jen. I just saw that you listed a property in Lake Oswego.
Oh yeah, you must be talking about the condo at 123 Main Street.
That's the one I'm talking about. Hey, I have a client that's potentially interested in it, but I'd love to learn more about it. You have some time I could talk to you about it right now?
Yeah, sure. What can I tell you?
Yeah, so, well, my client really likes the view of the lake that's nearby, but I honestly am very curious about your seller's current experiences with the access to the amenities and just the location itself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about that, but I haven't heard them really complaining. I know they like living here, so I think access is pretty easy, from what I've heard, because normally that's something they would have told me if there were any issues with it.
Great. What specifically do they find really captivating about living there?
They've liked the ability that they've liked the fact that they can, immediately be out and walking in nature and things like that. That's probably their number one thing that I've heard them say they like.
Wonderful. I think that aligns with some of my clients' interests, so I want to pass that along. Is there anything else that you think I should know about besides price that's particularly important when writing an offer?
Well, I noted it in MLS, but in case you missed it, they do need a 30-day rent back. They're going to need that much time to be able to get packed and out of the house.
30-day rent back. Got it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the information, and hopefully I'll be able to schedule a showing in with you quickly.
Great. Love to see an offer from you.
Thank you.
So in that particular one, I said, okay, I've got it on MLS, but sometimes agents won't put on MLS you know, that they're need a rent back. So calling, you find out just so much more. The only other thing I would have asked probably Santosh is, do you have any offers in, or when are you reviewing offers? So let's see, that's the questioning. Any thoughts, any questions, any ahas? Do you have something, Isha?
So these questions, the conversation was really interesting, and these questions should be only asked once your client shows the interest, not before we are going for just showing the property.
Oh, you could do that before. That just takes, here's my thing. If I've got one client, I can do that. If I've got 5 clients, I can't do that. So any system you guys are putting in place, I know right now it's like, I have one client, I can do everything for them. You won't be able to do that when you've got 5 clients or 10 clients or 15 clients. So we're putting systems in place that there's things you have to do that are important to you, and there's things that aren't as important. So unless this client is like, this is the house, we've seen 500 other houses, we drove by this one, it's the one, that one I'm usually going to call before. But if I'm going out and showing them like 5 or 6 houses, if I have to call before everyone, even if those are only 5-minute calls, and I get every agent when I call them, that's a half an hour of time.
Yeah.
So, now some of that may change going forward, guys, with the new compensation guidelines. If the agent hasn't put any indication in MLS, if the seller is willing to give any compensation or consideration, then you have no choice but to call if your client needs it. If I've got a client that no matter what cannot pay me what's been put into the buyer rep agreement, then the seller has to be willing to cover that. So I have to call first and say, is this something your seller is willing to consider as part of the negotiations? Yes or no. If it's like, no, they will not pay, then you need to go back to your client and say, these sellers will not pay a commission for me to represent you. So either you're going to have to find the money, or we're going to need to look at different properties. So that's the only reason I can think right now that you would be definitely want to call before. And if you've got time, great. But, for the most part, also as a listing agent, I will answer any questions you have after showing the property, but usually, because you may show it, your client's not interested. Well, if I answered a bunch of questions up front, that wasted your time, my time. So it just depends. But in general, unless you've got a client, unless you've already seen the house, I wouldn't be calling for a bunch of questions, kind of, especially not the type of ones that we just went through. Unless there's something specific about the property that there's a concern, then calling up front and asking about that makes a lot of sense. That makes sense? Okay.
So it's easy to say no for a property. It won't be like our fiduciary duty about checking each and every property, whatever the client is saying, because they are not ready to pay the commission to us, our compensation, then we should not go for that property.
That's up to your client ultimately. So here's the thing. Even if, client has said, I don't have the money, I don't have the ability to do this, and the seller is going to have to pay it. Then the client sends you 10 homes. They want to see all of them. They're really in love with one of them in particular. That particular one is not offering a commission on MLS. So you call them up and say, I've got this buyer that, doesn't have the cash. Is the seller willing to consider it? No, the seller will not do anything. Okay. Well, you don't automatically say, sorry, not going to see that one. They're not going to pay. You go back to your client and say, how do you want to handle this? I know you don't have the money. They're not willing to do it. Now, the other thing to know is never say die. Just because a seller says they are not willing to offer anything Well, they're on at 500 and you made an offer at 550. Guess what? They're probably more likely to pay the commission. So it's never a hard no unless the seller, sometimes the listing agent will just be honest. They'll be like, my client's just being a jerk about this and they will not do it. If they're at that point, then oftentimes you won't get it, but it's always up to your client. So you're getting the information your client needs in order for your client to make a decision. All of you hear that again, because this, a lot of times agents are like, what should I do? What should the client do? What should we ask for? And any of you who have worked with me, I come back and say, what's important to the client? What's the client saying? It's not our job. Like my guys who are buying this house, if I was the buyer and they didn't do the roof, I'd be like, it's been nice. See you later. They're like, nope, we want it no matter what. So everybody's, what's important to people is different, and what people are willing to tolerate is different. Now, if you have a client, and Isha, you seem to find a lot of these, if you have a client that is just asking for everything and always feels like they need to be the one who wins, that is really hard. So with those kinds of people, and you'll all come across them, that's where you find little micro wins for them. This is where you're negotiating with them and they don't even know you're negotiating, because it's not really negotiating, but it's priming them. It's letting them have the little micro wins, because oftentimes if they can have that micro win, they're good. Sometimes that micro win is a difference of $1,000 in the purchase price, whatever it is. But start kind of, as you're listening to clients, especially ones that you're like, I think this person's going to be difficult, start trying to figure out where are you going to be able to find those little micro wins so that they feel like each step of the way they got something more. Because sometimes you can be in control of them getting that something more. You know, like with my clients, they would have been happy if this guy said, no, we're not doing the roof. Even if the agent had come back to me and said, seller won't do the roof, I'd be like, what is the seller willing to do? Because we're not doing nothing. Even though my buyers are like, we'll do nothing. No, I'm not going to just roll over and be like, okay, that's not what I'm paid for. I'm paid to negotiate on my client's behalf. All right. We are not going to do the role play because it's a pain in the neck in here. I have to put you in rooms and everything and we lose time. This is a good thing though to role play and practice. Just doing, I mean, you guys can do just what we just did. Pick somebody, do it all over the phone, actually call each other and pretend and go back and forth. If you play with it, you'll have fun with it. If you make it, oh my God, we got to practice this, it'll suck. So you get to choose. All right, moving along. Present. Okay. So a lot of this we actually have kind of covered as we've been going along, but what are you going to do? You're going to call the other agent. Please, please, please don't submit an offer without some form of communication with the other agent. As a listing agent, when an offer just magically appears in my inbox, it's like, who is this person? Do they know anything about the property, anything about what's important, anything about what's going on? No, they just threw an offer at me. Here's the other thing. 9 times out of 10, those offers are poorly written. They're lowball. They're lousy. So even if you're writing an excellent offer, I don't want you put into that category of these people who don't do their job well. So always reach out to the agent. Thinking about making an offer. What do we need to know? Now they're talking about some of the other things. Pay attention to nonverbal cues like pauses or voice qualities. You're tuning into everything that might help you. Keep quiet once you present an offer. Listen carefully to what's important to the other party. So remember, ask the question, make the statement, stop. Most of us in America need to learn to do that more. One person stops speaking, and even before they're done, we're talking over the top of them. We are not good at allowing for silence. It makes us really uncomfortable. Stay calm and relax. Have fun with this. if you kind of think about it more as a game versus we're negotiating, you'll be able to stay more in that spot where you're going to do better with negotiations. Focus on the customer's needs and give your offer the best chance. So when I say give your offer the best chance, tell me some things that you control about giving your offer the best chance.
I think it was Linda that we were on the call with yesterday. She was talking about escalation clauses. Seems like that she's used that quite a bit to win when there's been multiple offers. And for a reasonable amount, like $3,000 or $5,000 up to a certain amount, not like $1,000, she said.
Mhm. Having them submit their property love letter.
Okay, be careful on love letters.
I know it has to be about property and not about yourself.
Yes. Yes. What are things that what are things that if Sarah's making an offer and I'm making an offer, that me as an individual or Sarah as an individual can do specifically as a person that make a difference to the likelihood of that offer being accepted? I've told you some of them already.
Try to convince them to have as few, what are they called? Sorry, mind blank. The restrictions on your offer.
Contingencies.
Contingencies, thank you. Having fewer contingencies can help.
So I'll tell you, because I'm kind of leading you guys, and it's probably I'm not asking the question well. These are things that like how clean your paperwork is, the email you send over, your stupid face, because they distract me, and then I offer you send over. Honestly, when you show the house, you start your negotiations when you show the house, by how you schedule the appointment and whether or not you follow the rules in the MLS, by how you show up and whether or not you do it there, and what you do in the house or don't do in the house. All of these things. So let's say Sarah and I both make offers, and Sarah makes an offer. It's clean, it's well written. The email is very clear and concise, highlighting the things. When she showed the house, she followed all the instructions. She closed it up well, turned all the lights off, did whatever the instructions were. Awesome. Then I come along and I make an offer, and I showed the house, and I didn't bother to read the instructions. So I showed up at the house while the sellers were there. They let me in, but they weren't really happy about it. Then when I left, I forgot to lock the door. And then when I made my offer, I was in a hurry. So, it was kind of messy. I missed a bunch of stuff, but I got it in. And then I didn't have time for a cover email. So I emailed it. If you're the listing agent and this is the way both things are already coming in, which agent do you want to work with? It's not me. And we could do it in that scenario. We could even say, and this is the first offer Sarah's ever written, and I've been in the business 22 years. I don't care. Sarah shows up like a professional and Jen shows up like an idiot. So how you show up impacts whether or not your client's offers get accepted. I wish I could say differently, but the other side is looking at, are these people that we're going to get to the finish line? Now that's the agent, the offer, and the clients. All of that comes together. So if one is great and the other two are terrible, probably not going to happen. We need at least two of those to be in working order. So, a solid offer and a solid agent, and buyers that are maybe a little wacky, fine. But wacky buyers, lousy agent, decent offer, maybe. But if I've got other choices, I might go that route. So just know that it's all of it comes together. Perfect. Okay. This last one has all these examples I'm able to use. When I showed the house that I've been sharing, we've just finished repair negotiations, could not get the back door locked. I was like, I mean, I tried and tried and tried and tried. It's never fun to leave a house unlocked, but I was like, so I called the listing agent. I said, hey, I have tried over and over again. I cannot get this to lock. And so I'm just letting you know. Now, is that a fun call? No, it makes me feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Like, he probably came over and was like, all you have to do is this, and it locked. I'm really glad I did that because it didn't know I was going to be making an offer on that property. And he would not have been really happy with me if I'd left the house unsecured. And they know if you've been in the house because there's a lockbox that tracks that you've come in. So they know who the last person is. So if the next agent came in and said, oh, the back door was unlocked, he's going to be calling me up saying, what happened here? It played in my favor as it turns out, because he already knows now how conscientious and responsible I am because I called him before. So those are the kind of things that play out in your offers. Position. All right. So now we're looking at, here's our offer. How are we selling the offer to the other side? So positioning is, sometimes you're both kind of in the same spot and you're good. Otherwise, you got to look at and go, okay, here's where we have a meeting of the minds. We're all on the same page here. Here's where we've got some issues. So for the most part, and using language like this, awesome. With your clients, with the other side, awesome. We are on the same page on almost everything. And we've got this one section here we've got to figure out, how to make it work. That's when you move into the what and how questions. So, okay, I understand they don't want to do that. What are they willing to do? Or how could we come together and find a middle ground? You see, so those are the kind of questions asking the other side. And then it's a process, and positioning it's, this is when we think about negotiations, most of you probably don't think about the first sections we've been covering. Most of you think about this as the true negotiations, because this is more the back and forth. And what I'm going to tell you is if you do 1 and 2 excellently, 3 falls into place very easily. But what most people do is they prepare a little, they maybe have done their, an offer once before. So they're like, I can just throw this together. So their presentation isn't maybe spot on. And then positioning becomes harder. But if you come in, the other side likes you, they've seen how you offer, they're more willing to go with it. So know that if you do 1 and 2, well, 3 will fall into place. And then know when to walk away. And do that without damaging the relationship. This is on every one of them. So for me, I don't take listings that I do not believe I can sell. So if I come in and I'm saying, hey, the price should be 500, they're like, no, we want 6. Unless there's a way that I can come to terms with that for myself, I'm not going to list the house. So I'm going to have the conversation. Hey, love everything. If we walk through, acknowledge and confirm common ground. You know what? I love all this. Really would love to work with you guys. We were getting to that point. And I also, for me, while you have certain things that are crucial for you, one of the things that's crucial for me is I don't take listings that I don't believe I can sell. And I don't believe in good faith that I can sell your house at $600,000. So for me, that's a no. Now, that should not damage the relationship. I said, I don't feel like I can best serve you. Now, the real issue isn't me and whether or not I can serve them. It's that they want a price that another agent's going to come along. They're going to take it at that, and they're going to have a listing that sits, and they're going to fight for price reductions and whatnot. And I am not telling you guys that you need to do your business the way I do. That is a choice I have made for me. I don't like asking for price reductions. Every time you ask, it's a renegotiation. That's the other thing we don't really talk about in here. If there's spots where you can pre-negotiate when there's no emotion or energy behind it, do it then. So if you do take that listing that's $100,000 overpriced, because usually the comment will be, well, let's just try it at 600 for a couple weeks and then we can drop it down to 550 or whatever the number is. If you do that, say, okay, we'll do that, and write it directly into your listing agreement under the additional terms. So when 2 weeks comes, I don't have to go back to Mr. or Mrs. Seller and say, hey, we need a price reduction. When it comes, I just go, it's that day. I'm still going to let them know. I'm going to say, hey, per our agreement, I want you to know we're dropping the price today. But that way I'm not having to go back and ask them for it. So those
I have
are
a
some-
question, Jen.
Yeah.
So, I know of somebody who is basically playing that game. He's someone my husband works with and listed it right before he found out I was getting my license. But he's basically way overpriced. And it's been sitting there for 50 days and they don't have anything going on it. There's nothing, because he has a contract with somebody else, there's nothing I can do. Right. I have to, there's not even a, hey, if you get tired of listing with this guy, there's nothing I can do, right?
No, if he reaches out to you, you can talk to him. You cannot reach out to him.
I cannot reach out to him because I want to be like, I don't think this guy's doing you any service letting you list it for way overpriced. But
no, but you also don't know the conversation the client probably pushed on that.
Oh, I think he did, because he's not living in it anymore and he's doing fine. So he's just kind of letting it sit there and see what happens. But
he's making a monthly mortgage payment and paying the taxes and insurance on it. So he's losing money on it every month.
I know.
So that's part of it. And I mean, I did that kind of, but that's part of negotiating with your list, with your clients. When you're sitting down on a listing appointment and they want to overprice it, that's when you say, okay, so tell me, how much is your mortgage payment? And then roughly, how much are your, I mean, you can't really do the monthly bills because they're going to have that at the new house, but you still kind of can. How much is it costing you to live in this house each month? First of all, most people don't think that way. And when they do, they go, oh my Lord. Like, okay, so every month at this house, especially if it's empty, they're still living there. Yeah. When it's empty, it's like, okay, so every month this house sits empty, it's costing you $4,000.
Right. So how many months are you going to let that go down?
Yeah. So it's not, So those are,
but there's nothing we can do. We can't be like, hey, if you get tired of this agent, let me know, because that's not allowed.
No. If he reaches out to you and starts a conversation, then yes. Yeah. Other questions on positioning? Okay. All right. We're not gonna do this one either. All right. What'd you guys learn? We just covered the 3 Ps, which is the bulk of this. So I want some ahas and how you're going to utilize what you learned. And we are in the home stretch. So there's like 2 more slides.
I like the keeping quiet. I don't know. I work at a school the other part of the time, and with kids, you have to pause because it takes them a while to process. So I'm thinking I'm going to think of my clients as like big children and remember to give them that space.
We all answer better if we have more time to think. As adults, we're kind of forced into, but we do much better if we have the moment to stop and pause, which I will also say, use that when you're responding. Take that moment to take a breath and ground yourself when you're responding, especially when you're feeling like, I can feel the anger and frustration coming up, or whatever the emotion is, I can feel it. I'm going to ground myself before I come back. So that momentary pause. Good one, Carrie. All right. Who else? What do we got? Or we just waste, that section probably was 45 minutes. So we just waste 45 minutes of your lives?
For me, when I thought about negotiating, I just thought about the negotiating the price with the seller and like the seller's agent. So thinking about it as the whole process is just one big negotiation after another, that was super helpful and laid it out really nice.
What else? Sarah?
I've taken a bunch of notes so that I can start working on my list of how I can just kind of keep reminders for myself. And I'm kind of with Georgia, like going back and seeing it as a big picture and making sure that we're kind of just like the touches that we try to do with future clients. Hopefully it's like having those touches through the whole process with other agents and all of that, that those are just as important as the ones with your client. I hadn't really thought of that side of it.
The entire business is about relationships. That is what we do. We build and nurture relationships with our clients, with other agents, with our affiliates, with all those things. What else? Anything else, you guys?
I like the info about, like right now, even when I'm going and previewing homes, trying to get an idea of the market, like about the relationship and if I'm, being professional in the process of previewing. Now I'm worried though that I should be checking all the doors. Like if I only go in and out of one door, then I'm thinking, should I check all the doors and make sure all the doors are locked, even if I didn't use those
It's
doors?
not a bad idea, but the only thing with that, flip side on it is, if you find a door that's open and you know it wasn't you, don't automatically lock it. Call the agent and say, hey, I'm showing the house. The back door was open. I was going to lock it, but before I did it, I don't want to lock it and lock somebody out. The biggest one we'll see those through are like garage, like pass through doors. A lot of people leave those open intentionally and agents come through and lock them. They come in through their garage and they can't get into their house. So if it's open and you didn't open it, double check. But yes, that is a huge gold star. If you smell gas at a property, if there's water running that doesn't look like it should, pick up the phone and call the listing agent. You'll be their friend for life. Because you can take something that's a small issue and they can come and resolve it before it turns into, a gas leak. The house could explode. The house could blow up. So.
Okay. And then, if you, like, a lot of them have texted me after I made the appointment, the way they asked you to make it on the MLS. And so then I'll give feedback by text, but then I get the email also. I've just been doing it however they communicated with me, but are we supposed to do additional feedback on those emails that we get?
Usually if I've already given feedback, I will on those emails just quickly go in and acknowledge it, because mainly not for them, for me, because otherwise the system keeps sending stupid emails.
Okay.
And it gets really annoying. So you just go in and often I'll just say, hey, I already gave you email or already gave you feedback via text or email. Or a lot of those are literally like 1, 2, 3, 4, like there's 5 questions and it's yes or no. I'll just do it real quick just so it's done. Now, none of those are required, guys. But what I do in my business is what I would hope other people do. If I ask for feedback, I really want the feedback from other agents. So if agents ask me for feedback, I give them feedback. Now, it might not, I always try and do it right away because the seller wants the feedback. Sometimes that's not possible. It might be a day or two, but I still get them the feedback. So, anything else in terms of ahas or how you're going to implement with this, what you're going to do differently?
Checklist.
Yes. Building out your own checklists. And I mean, those of you in my program, you've got some of them as a starting point. Take those and build out what makes sense to you. Like some of it is it has to, and some of it's what's your process, because that's what makes you unique. And you may also some people need that detailed checklist where it's like, now turn the page. And some people just need it, pick up the book. Like it depends how much you need. So build out what works for you so that you feel comfortable and you're moving through these flows in ways that you're like, oh, I can breathe. There's a calmness, there's a certain like stability to it. The more you do these things up front, the less you will feel it when you're panicking because you're doing an offer for the first time or a listing presentation or whatever it might be. All right. Anything else before we move on? Okay. I think I've probably covered all these, but we'll go through them again. Professional, be professional, be professional, be professional. Keep your goal in mind. Now, that goal is different at different times. Most of the time, the goal really is a signed agreement, whether it's a buyer rep agreement, a listing agreement, a signed purchase or sale agreement, a signed repair addendum, there's an agreement. That's what we're pushing towards. Reminding your client of that sometimes is good. Here's our goal. Here's how we're moving towards it. And sometimes when they're like not really going down that path, you can say, hey, I had our goal as this. Has something changed, or what has changed? Not has. See, I won't fill into yes or no. What has changed here? Well, nothing's changed. Okay. So nothing's changed, but we're headed down this path and you're going, I'm going this way and you're going this way. So something has changed or there's a miscommunication. So keep your goal in mind. Keep that goal in mind for your clients too. Hey, I would say this is probably the biggest thing. Pay attention to your communication and tone with anyone involved in the transaction. And be really careful with email and text. When you're sending texts and emails, read through them, and it's anything where it's a tensor spot, read through them carefully. Look for any inflammatory language in them. Remove it. Look for any emotional language. The second you guys start saying, my client, my buyer, my seller, no. Now we use it and we say that, we refer it, but when you're negotiating, it's my, or we. There is no we here, guys. No we. You're not selling the house. You're not buying the house. You are representing the parties. There's a reason why we don't put the buyer and the seller in the room and say, you guys figure it out. Too much emotion. We are the, I laugh because we are supposed to always be the pillars of steadfast, non-emotional, get the deal done. We are the calming energy. We are the ones that keep things moving forward. We don't stir the pot and create drama. Now I laugh because realtors as a group of humans stir the pot and create drama more than any other humans I've ever met in my life. And I've been doing this 22 years, so I've met a lot of realtors. Realtors love drama. I will tell you that drama in your business will make your life and your business miserable. The more you are drama-free, and the more you are drama-free when you come up against drama, because you can be as drama-free and as zen as possible. If you come up against an agent who's in the drama circle, your only choice is to jump in the drama circle or to stand your ground and be the thing that they're circling around rather than you circling with them. So you just ground yourself in, I'm going to keep my tone and my communication professional and calm. And never say, the other thing with this, never say anything about where your client's at in terms of like, oh, my client's super anxious. Nope. We don't share what our client's feeling with the other side. Anything you share can and will be used against you. So your goal is to pull as much information out of the other side, and then is to only share the things, the pieces of information that create the story and the path for your client's best end result, whatever that goal is. So if I start going, oh, my client's freaking out, blah, 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 that doesn't help the situation. They don't need to know that. Sometimes we do it because we think that's going to put pressure on the other side. It usually doesn't. So again, this is one of those areas that the person who's able to stay cool, calm, and collected will win the game. Continually refer to your client's motivation when speaking with them. This kind of circles back to the keeping your goal in mind. Sometimes your clients need that reminder. Remember, we're wanting to get this house sold because you want to be in Texas by September. So do we really want to argue over this $1,000 repair, or do we want to get it done? So reminding them of their motivation. Now, in order to remind them, you have to know them and understand them and had enough detailed conversations with them to actually be able to speak to them, not at a surface level, but a deeper level. Don't reveal too much. Listen more than talk. Keep your client's motivation close to your chest. We've kind of covered that. Don't be attached to the outcome. That's hard, especially when you're new, but it's hard always because we care about our clients. We want the thing for them. And let's be honest, we also would like to get paid occasionally. So, but we can't be attached to the outcome. You've got to stay neutral. You also have to know sometimes your client's going to get what they want, but it's not going to be all of what they want. And that needs to be okay. Sometimes your clients aren't going to do what you want them to do. And that's really frustrating. It is so frustrating when you're like, I put all this together. We got all this way. The seller came back with this counter. You should take it. It's reasonable. And they go, nope, not doing it. You're like, really? I have to start this whole thing over again? Come on. Yeah, you do. Now, you can talk to them some more and see if you negotiate to get to the desired outcome. But when you get to the outcome is the outcome. Thoughts on any of these negotiation tips? Questions on any of these negotiation tips? All right. Give me some ahas and I will let you go. We are wrapping things up. So we've covered a lot today. So these are the things to ask yourselves at the end of any training. But how has your thinking changed? What ideas or mindsets are new for you? What do you feel differently about? Has anything shifted for you? What's meaningful? And this is the one I always think is important. How are your behaviors be different going forward? What actions will you take? And then this is asking what tools, models, or systems, and how will that make you accountable? So, because if we do how your thinking has changed, all right, cool. I didn't know, I didn't know or hadn't really thought of negotiation being all of these things. Awesome. Okay. So now that you know that, how do you feel about that? And what was meaningful about that? What are you going to do different because? So you see how these just flow along to deeper understanding, deeper learning, and ultimately implementation. So that's why I would literally, you guys, these are in every single one of your classes, but for any class you ever take, have your list of questions along these lines that you answer, because it will help cement what you learned so much more. So it'll cement what you learned, and it will give you the implementation steps, not just the learning steps. Because that's the problem with training. We know that if you take a training, at best, you're going to retain about 10% of it. And just because you retain 10% of it does not mean that you're going to act on that 10%. So a lot of training, people sit in, they learn, and they walk out, and nothing ever happens from it. These kind of questions and having this little pause at the end of anything like this that you do help you to actually implement. So we don't actually go to this point and say these things because we're like, oh, we would love to have you have to do more ahas. We do it because it cements learning. And when you share it, other people learn from it too. So what I'd like to do here is give you guys just a couple minutes to jot down your answers to these and then do a little bit of sharing. And then we'll be done. So we'll still be done early. So literally take like 2 seconds, note down 2 minutes, not 2 seconds, note down your answers, and then, yeah, we'll go from there. All right, so who has something they'd like to share?
I like to get the info, give it to your client and let them decide. Thought that was really helpful, take some of the pressure off from feeling like I might need to make a decision for them. Cause I do think sometimes people's decisions change, like if they really like a property and there isn't that commission, they might be able to borrow money from a family member or something in order to get that paid. Or so just presenting the information and not trying to figure out what the answer is, letting them tell me.
Yes. And they may have questions, and that's okay. You can advise them, but it's not your decision to make. Where I see that the most is it's either on offer price or repair addendum. So what else? Who else has something?
I have something.
Hey,
How you mentioned thinking about it like a game.
Mhm.
That's kind of exciting to me. It makes it more fun, I think, instead of a chore, trying to fight for it or whatever.
yes.
Also, the idea expanding on what the concept of negotiating is.
Mhm.
I like that too, because before this, I did have a more limited idea of it.
Yeah, most of us do. Like we think, oh, it's just the contract part. There's so much that goes into it. Love that. Thank you. Anyone else?
One thing that I was unsure of before the class was like when to contact the seller's agent if you're the buyer's agent, like during the whole process. So this kind of like lined that out a little bit more for me, which was super
Perfect.
helpful.
Yeah. And sometimes it'll say call seller, like call listing agent. So then you do that. But if you're calling like every listing agent before you go out to the house, first of all, it's a lot of time and effort on your part, and it's a lot of time and effort on their part. So unless it's necessary, don't call before you know your client's interested or you think they're interested. Who else? Miss
I
Sarah.
was gonna say, when I was going through my tools one, I've been really impressed with Santosh and how much he just has put together and finds things and researches things. And I was sitting next to him today. Every time I sit next to him, I'm like, he's always so on top of things. So just expanding where I can get those models and examples and things that I can pull in and then practice those like he's practiced them. I think Santosh is doing great and he's a good example.
I think he is too.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share or any comments or feedback or anything before we part ways for the day?
How come some house they have an offer deadlines and some doesn't?
Just depends. It's different styles. in this market, we're not seeing them as much. In the market, if it was 2-3 years ago, everyone would have that. And what that is because when you put the deadline, that's basically just letting people know we're not going to take the first offer that comes in. You've got some time to show it. We want it to have time to be on the market. What you're seeing more now is when an offer comes in, they set an offer deadline for like 24 hours later. Now, what happens with that is then they'll change MLS. They'll say offer deadline 5 p.m. tomorrow, one offer in. Or there's the kind of standard one, which is, hey, the house is going on the market on Thursday. Offers are going to be reviewed on Tuesday or whatever. So it's just personal preference. It kind of controls the flow. The problem is with that is then sometimes sellers will take an offer before the deadline because they'll like that offer better. They'll do some things like that. However, I typically, if it's me, I always, if there's a deadline on it, I'm going to double check and make sure that deadline's going to hold. And if they say, well, just submit, I'll say, well, my clients want to hold off because we want to submit the best offer. That's going to depend on how many offers you have in. If you get offers in, please contact me. The agents will say yes. Most of the time they will, but sometimes they won't. There's not a lot I can do about that. So, but the deadline just allows you to kind of control the process a bit more.
So I kind of have a question on top of that. So there's like offer deadlines and then there's reviewing days of offers. So when a seller gets, or like a selling agent gets an offer, if they're like, we're reviewing it on Tuesday, but it's Thursday, does the selling agent still give them the offer you just submitted, or do they wait and give them all the offers on that Tuesday to review?
Well, I'll tell you what they legally should do, and then I'll tell you what a lot of them actually do. So legally, they should send that offer to their seller immediately. In practice, a lot of them, well, let me rephrase that. Unless the seller has signed something that said, I don't want to see any offers until this date, I want to see them all at once. If not, then you should forward them. What most agents or a lot of agents do is the other. They hold them even if they don't have something written. But my recommendation is, and this is how I handle it, is I tell my clients, look, as the offers come in, I'm going to send them to you so that you've seen them. But we're not going to sit down and review them until the date we've set when we've got all the information. So that way, no one can come back and say, you didn't present my offer. Yeah, I did. We're not responding to it until this date, but I did present it. Yeah. So offer deadline is very similar to the having a presentation date, different wording, but very similar.
Okay, that's what I thought. Like, I thought they legally had to submit it to the seller right away, but I just wanted to double check and make sure that I wasn't confused. So
unless they have something contractual that says they don't have to, they do.
Not to extend this conversation further, but if there's a offer deadline or like offer review date on Thursday, right? But then I receive an offer on Tuesday with a 24-hour review period, I can't wait until Thursday to give it to my client, or else the period will pass, right? So
right. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to immediately reach out to the other agent and say, hey, we're not reading offers till Thursday. Can you send me an addendum extending your expiration date?
Okay.
So, but I'm still going to send it to my client because I've received the offer. If you read what our agreements all say, they say we will deliver it in a timely fashion. So it doesn't say, oh my God, I got the offer, I'm going to deliver it in 5 minutes. But to wait 3 days is not a timely fashion.
And Jen, if you set it up and say, we're going to, accept offers through this date, and someone submits one with a lower, like an earlier deadline to it, can you accept that offer when you've advertised that you're accepting offers through a certain deadline?
Yes. Now,
okay.
Am I okay with that? No. Do I think ethically it's not real cool? Yes. But all that is a statement on the MLS. The seller has the right to change their mind at any point in time.
Okay. Because if you kind of say, oh, I think there's going to be a lot of offers, so we're going to do it this way, and you set it up that way, but then you don't get any offers, you don't have a lot of action, and you do get one thing in that, and they're like, nope, it's either now or never. Because I mean, that happened to me where someone kind of came in and was like, look, I'll give you this, but I'm not willing to wait till Sunday. So you either take it in this 24-hour period or I'm pulling it. And we said, yeah, we're going to wait till Sunday, and we just let that go. But I could see how, and a seller might be like, oh no, is it the bird in the hand better than waiting?
And I agree with all of that. The other thing I'm going to say though is weighing it out. Now, if it's an investor, they're going to make the offer, and if it's not right, they're going to walk. 'Cause
Right.
they're not emotionally tied. But if I have a first-time buyer who's making an offer and is trying to pressure my seller into making a decision on Saturday instead of Monday, if that first-time buyer is really so uninvested in the house that if we say, sorry, we're going to hold the line, we're going to wait till Monday, that they're going to walk, let them walk.
Okay.
I mean, that's my stance. It's ultimately up to your seller. So this is where, when you're all, what do I do? It's ultimately up to your seller. But that buyer is telling you if they're truly going to walk, then are they going to walk at the drop of a hat because they're not in love with the house? I want somebody who's like, I want to fight for this house. I want it. Investors. But then the flip side is sometimes you'll have that where you normally have that happen is like a cash investor comes in and the list price is 500. You maybe already have an offer in at 505. That's financed. The offers are due on Sunday. The investor comes in and offers 500 cash. That's a pretty tempting thing. So now you've got a 500 cash and a 505 financed, and they're both in front of your seller. At that point, your seller probably is going to want to take that $500,000 cash offer. Now, if that offer truly is only there for 24 hours, they're going to have to decide, do I want to do that or not? Oftentimes when they try and push that, it's one of two things. It's a pretty lousy lowball offer, or it's a pretty rock star offer that they've really pulled out all the stops on, and your seller may want to do it. Now, my philosophy and the way I have run my business is the conversation I have with my sellers is, look, we're making this commitment. We need to stick by it. Now, if an offer comes in that just is amazing, then I'm also going to tell my client, my job is to take care of them, not to take care of the other agent. I'm going to tell them we should take this, even though, and before, or I'm going to say, let me call the other agents who've shown it, who've shown interest, those kinds of things, and give them a few hours to respond. But this offer is pretty amazing. So.
I like that. That's a good compromise. Because if you haven't had interest shown anyway, then there's probably not a big push. But if you have, then you can be like, hey, I did get this in. I swear every time we make an offer, it's been on the market forever. We finally put in an offer. The agents come back and say, I just had 2 other offers come in. You're first, so you can match it or whatever. And I always wonder if it's really true.
No, it does. It is the weirdest thing. It's like, really? I've been sitting on this listing for a month. And all of a sudden, and no price reduction, nothing, just all of a sudden. And it's weird, but it does happen. So, all right. If we don't have anything else, then I will set you free to enjoy the rest of this god-awful hot day. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for playing with me, and have a great day.
Hey, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah,
Did
Thank
you
you.
see that Allison has COVID?
I did.
Okay. I just, she just let me know. So I thought I'd let you know. Okay. All right.
right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.